Hello, welcome, and thank you for tuning in. This is your host, Daniel Jones, and I'm here today with some great guests, Noe Torres and Ruben Uriarte, and we're going to be discussing an event that occurred earlier in January, the Del Rio UFO Festival. This was a fantastic event, and I'm excited to be introducing Noe and Ruben. So, welcome.
Well, thank you, Daniel. This is Noe from South Texas. And in a minute, we'll be joined by my good friend Ruben Uriarte from the Bay Area in California. And we had a fantastic time in Del Rio. Ruben and I have been putting on these UFO festivals in Texas, and we even did one in Roswell, New Mexico as well. We've been doing these for the past 8 years. And I'd have to say that for a number of reasons that we can explore during the broadcast tonight, this one in Del Rio is without a doubt the best one we've ever done. Wouldn't you agree, Ruben?
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for the invitation here, Daniel. I know you were a real busy man there, and so was Noe. They're putting together the festival, and it turned out to be just one amazing happening with lots of folks having a great time, as well as being educated by some of the latest leading researchers. So we had a blast.
Most definitely, and it was really exciting to see all of the great speakers there, and the presentations they gave were very informative. But not just that, it was a really community-oriented event, and I thought that was really fascinating because it closed off Main Street. A lot of people came in, got booths, food, there was live music. It was just a really great time for anyone in Del Rio. It wasn't just about UFO Club members only. It was for anyone there.
Well, that's the thing, Daniel. Ruben and I had a philosophy very early on that there are enough meetings by UFO people for UFO people. And we didn't want to do that. We wanted to do something to enlighten and educate the general public who all are interested, really. Ruben and I used to do talks in our local area. Of course, he's in California in the Oakland area, and I'm in South Texas. We each used to do talks in our own areas, and we would see long lines of people, just members of the public, come up afterward and tell us of their own unique and remarkable UFO experiences that they or a family member or close friend have had. So it became clear to us that the message about UFO sightings, the significance of them, the thesis that our planet is being visited and has been visited for a really long time, we felt that was important to get. It was an important message to get to the general public. And so, as I said, early on, Ruben and I decided that we were going to strive to make our UFO festivals be aimed at the general public rather than a core group of people who already believe in UFOs. And so that's, we started with the Laredo UFO Festival in 2007. And so it's been 8 years. It's been a wild 8 years. We've had crowds of up to 1,000 people attending our UFO festivals. We had about 500. It's a smaller venue in Del Rio, but we had over 500 people attend the presentations. And the best part of it was we had over 200,000 listen in to the live Inception Radio Network broadcast. Inception Radio broadcast the entire 2-day UFO festival live from Del Rio, and we had over 200,000 people from over 30 countries tune in and listen to the live broadcast. And that has been followed up, Daniel, by the lectures being available online, both in audio and video at inceptionradionetwork.com. So anyone that didn't make the Del Rio UFO Festival, you can check out the broadcasts at delrioufo.com, delrioufo.com, and we've got links there to both the audio and video recordings. And anyone that owns a Roku device, the small little HDMI internet TV device that connects to your that connects to your high definition TV. If you own a Roku, you can download the Inception Radio Network app or channel, and you can watch the entire Del Rio conference, not just from this year, but our telecast or our broadcast from last year with live video is also there on that same channel. So we just had a blast. I mean, I could go for the next 3 hours talking about how wonderful it was to interact with the great people that we had speaking. Nick Pope, we had Jim Mars. Oh my God, I cannot think of anyone who represents more to everybody that was there in terms of his accomplishments, his level of commitment to the UFO field as Jim Mars does. And of course our featured speaker, George Norrie from Coast to Coast AM, was delightful, and he really captivated the audience. We had so many positive comments about George Norrie, and George was so thrilled to be in Texas. I guess he doesn't get to Texas much, really, and I should have asked him that, but he was so eager. On the way back, he requested that my good friend Brad Newton, who was part of our event staff, who drove him back to San Antonio to the airport, he requested that Brad take him by the Alamo. And so Brad gave him a private tour of the Alamo in San Antonio. And George really, really enjoyed it. And so we were just thrilled to have George Norrie with us.
Absolutely. It's really interesting that he came here. And like you said, it's not often that he may be in Texas, but out of all the places that this could have been, it was in Del Rio. And there is some significance to that. And I know that you and Ruben have worked together on some cases. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the significance of...
I think Ruben wanted to say something. Go ahead, Ruben. Pop right in.
Oh, I just wanted to say that the festivals that both Noe and I have been working on, it's all based on the books that we've written together based on historical UFO cases of crashes that have occurred along the U.S.-Mexican border. And this one, particularly the 1955 Del Rio UFO crash that we have focused with on a witness that's with us, who's unfortunately his health is deteriorating, Colonel Robert Willingham. And so we did a book based on his experiences about this crash UFO across the Rio Grande into the on the Mexican side of the border. So we bring history to the location, and Noe and I are really thrilled to have been working with city officials because this helps the community. It helps promote a little tourism, but also some knowledge about some of the ufology issues or history in that area.
Daniel, I wanted to add that Ruben makes a very good point. The communities where we hold these UFO festivals are not picked at random. I mean, we don't throw darts on a map of Texas and decide, hey, let's have a festival here. No, all of the sites where we're having these festivals have a connection to a major UFO incident that has occurred there. For example, the first book that Ruben and I wrote together was called Mexico's Roswell. We've done a number of TV documentaries and a whole bunch of radio shows and public appearances on our first book, Mexico's Roswell. And that took place right close to the small town of Presidio, Texas. So once a year, we have a festival in Presidio, which is in the Big Bend, for all your Texas listeners. It's a rugged, mountainous area, unlike any other part of Texas, and it's many people vacation down there. You got wide open spaces, really dark skies at night. You can see almost every star that's visible to the human eye, and so much so that the University of Texas has its famous McDonald Observatory there close, not too far from Presidio. So anyway, it's a beautiful place to spend a few days, and we've had really good speakers down in Presidio. We had Travis Walton, Stanton Friedman. We've had Nick Pope spoke this past October. So they have their festival around Halloween, and in fact, this year it will be on Halloween. So that's going to be an extra little jolt of interest there, I'm sure. And also, yeah, and in addition, they bundle it with another event that they've had going every year for quite some time called the Dude of the Dead Music Festival. And it's designed to be a Halloweenish, dress up like, whatever costume you want and come on out and enjoy the rock music. And we've attended that thing now for 3 years running, right, Ruben? And
Yeah.
it's been very enjoyable. The music is high quality. And the thing about it is that the UFO Festival ends, and then immediately the Dude of the Dead Music Festival begins. So it's a 2-for-1. It's a twofer for all the people. For all the people that want to get out there and get away from it all for a while. The Big Bend of Texas, the town of Presidio, is really a great destination in October. You can look up our website at ufoborderzone.com, ufoborderzone.com. And they're having a wonderful festival planned once again this coming October. Brad Newton, who was with us in Del Rio, he makes it to all of our festivals, and really he's part of our team, and I credit him for being one of the originators as well of the Border UFO festivals, even though he sometimes tries not to take credit for it, but he was very much instrumental in it. So Brad is the one who's in charge of putting together the one down in Presidio. And then, of course, Del Rio, our second book, was called The Other Roswell UFO Crash on the Texas-Mexico Border. And there's a story of Colonel Willingham, as Ruben was saying earlier. So as previously mentioned, all of our locations where we hold these festivals are somehow related to major historic UFO events.
I just wanted to also say that because we are located on the border there, Daniel, we do get an audience. We do get people coming from Mexico as well, and we've had also some very well-known Mexican investigators present their cases and their research to the audience. I was reading in the newspaper, Noe, there was one gentleman that drove 6 hours. He was from Mexico and came to listen to George Norrie, and of course his program expands on both sides of the border. So I was real surprised
absolutely. We actually had people that drove from all over the United States to come.
Yeah.
In fact, the Chamber of Commerce folks estimated that over 90% of the people who attended were not from the Del Rio area. So that's a remarkable turnout of out-of-town guests, which really pumped a lot of energy and money into the Del Rio economy, which made the Chamber of Commerce people walk around on cloud nine for a few days afterwards. So we had a gentleman who drove all the way, he and his dad drove all the way from Shreveport, Louisiana to attend the conference. We had a lot of people from Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, South Texas. Actually my friend Steve Androsco, who is also a speaker, and I were walking down the street after the festival, and we ran into a guy I know from down here, from McAllen, from Edinburgh. So, it was tremendous. And then, several people who attended described the Del Rio event as more of a feeling of being among friends at a backyard barbecue,
Yeah.
And I thought that was a wonderful description, because everybody helped everybody. There was a sense of fellowship or companionship, or people who have similar interests in mind. And so it was as if everybody there was on the same wavelength. It was just something to behold that we don't actually see too often. Another gentleman sent me an email afterward, and he said that he goes to almost every UFO conference. He's retired, so he goes to almost every major UFO conference, in the United States, and a lot of them are held in big cities, and they're kind of cold and impersonal, and you never really get close to the speakers or the celebrities, and you never really bond with any of the other people who are going there because they're all in their little clique. And he said ours was totally unlike that. You could get right up to George Norrie and put your arm around him, have a picture taken. You could get him to sign anything you're carrying. We had Travis Walton, Stanton Friedman, we had Nick Pope, Jim Mars, just a variety of fantastic. You would never have a chance to be up close and personal with. So everybody was just thrilled about that.
No, I just also wanted to add, if I recall, that was probably one of the largest groups of veterans that we've had attending as well. That really blew George Norrie's mind when he
absolutely.
asked the amount of veterans that were there.
He had George Norrie has a unique way of interacting with the audience throughout his presentation. And he had a little segment where he recognized all of the veterans in the audience, and almost every hand in the building went up. It was just amazing.
Yeah. It was really incredible to see that in almost every single row there was at least one, two, or if not three or more people that were military personnel, veterans or otherwise. And it's great to see that kind of turnout and their interest in the field of ufology as well, because a lot of times you have people that are involved in different projects, things that they're not really supposed to talk about, if they're top secret or whatnot. And so you can see these people are coming out, they'd like to know more because they might have heard something. And what's great is you're drawing people in from all over the state, if not beyond, like you're saying. It's great that it provides the community this outlet, this opportunity for them to be engaged, to be involved with all of the events, functions, all the wonderful presentations and everything else, because like you're saying, it's great to have everyone able to come and see what it's all about, not just a private club. And I really like that, how you approached it.
Well, that's exactly right, Daniel. And Ruben and I and several others had a conversation after the Del Rio Festival last weekend. We were all just kind of shooting the breeze, having some beverages, and we brought up the point that our UFO festivals probably would not work in a large city with hundreds of people, thousands of people in attendance. They just would not work because we're just not geared for that. That really doesn't appeal to us, to have a huge auditorium with 10,000 people listening to George Norrie, which he probably could fill an auditorium of that size. But that's not really what we're striving here for. We wanted to be more of an up close and personal experience. And the audience, it's for the audience and it's for the communities, as you mentioned, Daniel. Ruben and I, our books had been out there for a couple of years, and then we approached the towns closest to where these incidents happen, and we said, look, here's a major UFO incident that people all over the world are becoming familiar with or are familiar with, and your town is associated with it. So here's a chance, if you'd like, for us to bring some of the top experts in the UFO field here once a year, and you can really make something of it that would increase civic pride, bring in some tourism money, and be something that the whole community can get behind. And that's exactly what has happened. And we have just been so knocked out about it. But we would not want it. It's like when you have a little restaurant that's kind of small and has a limited amount of seating, and their food just is so fantastic, and you go there night after night or week after week to enjoy the food and the ambience, and then one day there's a sign that they're expanding, and then they move into a large building with lots of tables, lots of customers, and things are not the same anymore. So that's the analogy I would use. Our conferences would not work in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. As much as I like that area, don't get me wrong, but it's just, it would just be unmanageable. And the audience wouldn't get as much out of it.
You know what else I thought was really cool, Daniel, was that Noe and I were interviewed by a city councilman who had his own radio show, and then we met the city manager came down to meet with us, and of course, we're with Donna,
Oh,
who's with
at Presidio, we had the mayor of Presidio, who is a former music director for a local school, and he was playing in the mariachi, the Mexican mariachi band, to welcome us to welcome everybody to the festival, and he was playing the trumpet in the mariachi band. I mean, where else are you going to have the mayor of the city come and recognize you're having a UFO conference in his city, and playing and welcoming you by playing in a mariachi? I mean, really?
Exactly.
Seriously.
We had officials from the Mexican consulate that were there too. So it really is a really great way to meet people, to expand the network, and it's something that both Noe and I we had envisioned way back, and now we're seeing the fruits of our labor.
Most definitely, and I think it's really incredible to see that even the city officials from these different places are getting involved, and that shows a sense of how the community is oriented. They're encouraging people to come see what these festivals are all about and what they're dealing with, all the different functions. And I think it's fantastic because it's not it's not just that, like we were saying earlier, it's a particular membership or a group that is only allowed to come here. And another note is that the music involved, I think it was fantastic that there's this aspect of the music, and I can't think of another way to say it, but I never found I'd be landing a gig playing at a UFO festival. I think that's just incredible, and to me that adds another layer, another dimension of what these kinds of events offer to the community. It shows people, okay, there's not just people standing up and talking about aliens or UFOs or this or that, but it shows another aspect to what is involved, and to allow people to feel more inclined and comfortable with figuring out how
Well, I think you're exactly right, Daniel. And what happened was back in 2007, Ruben and I were invited to speak at the Roswell UFO Festival, which is the largest UFO-themed celebration in the world, and it's held every year in Roswell, New Mexico, at the Roswell UFO Museum. So in 2007, Ruben and I went and spoke there for the first time. And to tell you the truth, Daniel, I was extremely apprehensive. I had never been to Roswell, and I had seen coverage in the media about all these people wearing tinfoil hats and acting, wearing alien face costumes and face masks and stuff. And I was, I was thinking to myself, what kind of a situation am I getting myself into? A bunch of nut cases. Well, when I got to Roswell in the summer of 2007 to speak at the museum, I suddenly discovered one of the world's best kept secrets. Not only is it fun, informal, there are totally no nuts there. I mean, there are people who dress up in the spirit of fun and the festivities of the weekend, but it was a wonderful, family-friendly atmosphere with lots of activities. The city rolls out the red carpet to tourists who are coming in for the UFO lectures. And so really, we have Roswell to thank for giving us the idea and the pattern that we have followed at our events. We try to make it a family-friendly event that appeals not just to people who are interested in the UFO topic. We bring in speakers on science fiction, on astronomy, on folklore. We want speakers who tell an interesting story that engages people who are not necessarily super interested in the UFO field. So we want interesting stories that appeal to the general public. So all of the speakers that we choose have an interesting story to tell, regardless of whether or not you're interested in UFOs or you think they really exist or not. So it's kind of a simple philosophy, but it works.
It also, the Del Rio Festival was perfect timing in the sense that we also had the U.S. Air Force releasing their files of Project Blue Book just within a week. And of course, there was a lot of interest about that subject, about all these files from Project Blue Book that are made available now online. And so there were a lot of questions, a lot of interests. Of course, we had Nick Pope, who was part of the work with the Ministry of Defense. But I forgot to mention something, Noe and Daniel. Something real interesting happened to me. I was driving, and unfortunately I got stopped by a police officer because I had my lights on, my bright lights on. But he gave me a warning ticket, and then he asked, "Well, what are you doing? Where are you going?" And so we opened up and told him, "Well, we're going to the UFO festival." And then he said, and his whole attitude changed. And he said, "Oh, my mother saw a UFO in Mexico." And then so we began talking, and then on our return trip, we stopped there at the Border Patrol station, where they do the inspection, and they asked us what we were doing, where we're coming from, and we shared with them that we were UFO researchers. And immediately, both the Border Patrol officers were sharing their experiences. So it's a really interesting way to meet people, and you just meet people in the most darndest situations. Of course, me almost getting a ticket, but it was well worth it, because I think we opened this kid's eyes, this police officer.
Well, I wanna talk about my Border Patrol inspection experience on the way back home, because we had our 4-foot tall fiberglass ET in the back seat, propped up in the back seat, and I had forgotten he was back in the back seat. So we came up to the Border Patrol checkpoint. These are, for folks who may not be familiar, these Border Patrol checkpoints are set up about 50 to 70 miles north of the nearest international border crossing. And they're designed to screen any traffic that's inbound to the United States from a border area. And they have to look you over and make sure you're not carrying contraband or smuggling illegal aliens, stuff like that. So we stopped, and the question they always ask you is, are you U.S. citizens? And so my friend Steve and I both said, yes, sir. And then the officer turned to the back seat and with a puzzled look on his face, and he said, what about that guy back there? And I said, well, we don't know about him. We went to a UFO festival, and so then we started talking about the UFO festival. He was a young man and was very interested in it. So it's funny how you have these experiences. But once again, our objective is to take the message of these strange visitations we've been having since the beginning of human history. These strange visitations that people from all walks of life on a daily basis are having, and they all have interesting stories. And one of the topics that was spoken about this weekend, Jim Mars brought us an incredible lecture on ancient aliens and how the ETs seemingly have had a hand in human history since before biblical times. So it's just fascinating, the many directions philosophically that you can go with in terms of the ET issue, both current history as well as past history. It's a and one of the things, Daniel, if I could just add one last thing, one of the things that UK researcher Nick Pope, who was one of our featured speakers, he worked for 21 years for the British government and was the lead investigator for UFO sightings in England during that time. And he is recognized as the world's leading authority on the famous Rendlesham Forest UFO encounter, which happened at a U.S. Air Force base in England in 1980. Nick Pope said, and he's a very credentialed and authoritative gentleman and a speaker that speaks with great authority on the subject. And he said that people always ask him, why in the world, of all the things he could speak about, since he's such a tremendous speaker, of all the things he in the world he could speak of, why does he waste his time talking about UFOs and ETs? And he says that he always turns to them and says to them, I cannot imagine a topic that is of greater importance or significance in our lives than the nature of the universe, whether intelligent life exists elsewhere, whether the human race has ever had contact with intelligent life from elsewhere, how we came to be, what is our place in the universe. So in other words, what Nick is saying is that this truly opens up discussion on the most important points about being a human being on planet Earth in this vast universe of billions of other galaxies and planets. I mean, there could not be a more important topic.
Very well said, Noe.
I think it is so crucial to recognize the effect that this subject, this topic, and all of the relative topics have on anyone, the common person. It's not just about the people researching or that are enthusiasts or anything like that, but anyone that you come into contact with is affected. Just like you were telling about the border check and everything that went on there. It's so interesting to see the effect it has on people who may not even think about this on a common basis.
Absolutely.
It has something to do with how it affects them. It invokes something within them. And what does that mean to us? We have to understand it sociologically. And I think that's really a crucial thing about who we are in our psyche as well.
Yeah. What does that mean for us? Right. What does that mean for us? And it's so funny, Daniel. I'm so glad the way you phrased that just brought to my mind that whenever we mention this topic to just a member of the general public, not someone who has spent a lot of time thinking about it, just for example, the examples that Ruben gave, the policeman, the border patrol agent, a lot of the folks that we met in Mexico when Ruben and I traveled down there last few years doing UFO investigations. But the thing that happens, and Ruben, I'm sure you've noticed this, when you mention UFOs and ETs, you can almost hear the machinery turning in their brains. Yeah. And then it's like suddenly they get kicked into another gear in their thought process. Suddenly it isn't about all the worries and stress of day-to-day life and just making it from day to day, from paycheck to paycheck. Suddenly it's the big issues. What are we doing here? What is the meaning of life? Is there life elsewhere? Have they visited it? Suddenly all that comes into play, and it changes their entire demeanor, and it changes their entire attitude. As Ruben noted with the officers that he dealt with, it changes people's attitudes because suddenly they're confronted with something far larger than themselves.
Exactly, and I think it's important to note that when this is brought up, it strikes a chord within people, and we're on the verge of having to reevaluate, make a complete reconsideration of all of our models of reality regarding history, science, religion, physics, sociology, biology, chemistry, you name it. All of these things are inevitably going to change when this UFO reality is unveiled. I think it's something we're really going to have to work with in a way that compensates with all of these accounts, all of these experiences that everyone's having all over the world. And it is an incredibly crucial
unfortunately,
issue to our evolving.
And we don't know exactly all the aspects of it, but there has historically been a conspiracy among certain members of the elite to withhold this information from human society. And the reason being that it would be such a life-altering and society-altering truth that these groups and hidden groups and organizations do not want human beings to jump to that level. And it's unfortunate, but those who are in the know, who can see the symbols and the signs, as you and I were talking about earlier yesterday, if you can read the symbols and read between the lines, you know that this has been going on for a really long time. And it's just a matter of time before it becomes common knowledge, but there are powerful forces working behind the scenes to try to keep that from happening.
It definitely seems that way, and of course, as Jim Mars says, in regards to the elite, are they even us?
That is a good question.
That is a good question. Look at in a way that does compensate with everything we've been dealing with throughout history, like you're suggesting. And with that note, I'd like to say if there's anything you'd like to share about
Yeah, we have kind of a one-stop shop, roswellbooks.com, and we've got our conferences that we're doing linked there, as well as the books that we published and the research that we're doing. So if folks will just visit us at roswellbooks.com, they can become aware of our upcoming UFO conferences that we're planning and organizing. We've got some good ones coming up, including the Halloween one, Halloween 2015. We're going to have a really good show down in Presidio. There's going to be live music. There's going to be great UFO speakers, probably a celebrity or two down there. Then there's Del Rio next January as well. We're already working on that one. We started planning and working on it the evening that the 2015 conference ended this past weekend. We started working with Donna on next year's event. So we've got some interesting stuff coming up. We appreciate you having us on tonight, Daniel. Best of luck to you.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. You're both so very welcome. I'm glad we had the opportunity to get on here and tell everyone about the festival. Be sure to look out for the next one, January 22nd through 23rd in 2016. It's the Del Rio UFO Festival. Be sure to check out roswellbooks.com. And thank you so very much to both my guests, Noe Torres and Ruben Uriarte.
Thank you.
Thank you, and good night.